The glass shattered against the bar top at exactly 9:47 p.m. on a Thursday night that should have been ordinary. Sarah Chen didn't flinch. She'd heard worse sounds in Kandahar. But that was 5 years ago, and this was Romano Steakhouse in downtown Chicago, where the worst thing that usually happened was someone complaining about an overcooked ribeye. The drunk man stumbled toward her, his face flushed red from too much whiskey. He was big, maybe 6'3", with shoulders that suggested he'd played college football before life and alcohol had softened him. "Hey," he slurred, pointing a thick finger at Sarah. "You, waitress. I've been waiting 20 minutes for my steak." Sarah kept her voice level. "Sir, your order went in 15 minutes ago. The kitchen is running a little behind tonight. I apologize for the wait." "I don't want your apology." He took another step forward. "Or maybe I want something else." His hand shot out toward her waist, too fast for a drunk man, practiced enough that Sarah knew this wasn't his first time crossing lines. Her body moved before her conscious mind caught up. Her left hand intercepted his wrist, applying pressure to the nerve cluster that made his fingers go numb. Her right hand came up under his elbow, hyperextending the joint. She pivoted her hips, using his momentum to guide him face first into the bar top with a solid thunk that silenced every conversation in the restaurant. 3 seconds. From threat to neutralized in 3 seconds flat. If you're enjoying the story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. The restaurant had gone completely silent. 43 customers and 6 staff members all frozen in shock, their eyes locked on the small Asian woman who just put a man twice her size on the ground like it was choreographed. But Sarah only noticed one person watching her. The man in the corner booth by the window had been sitting alone all evening. She'd noticed him when he came in at 8 o'clock. He was tall, maybe 6'1", with dark hair touched with gray at the temples, and eyes that seemed to calculate everything they saw. His suit was expensive, Tom Ford or maybe Brioni, tailored to accommodate the subtle bulk of someone who kept himself in excellent physical condition. Vincent Moretti. She'd heard the name whispered by the other servers. The owner's cousin. The man who made problems disappear. He was watching her now with an expression she couldn't quite read. Not surprise. Recognition. Like he was seeing something familiar in her movements. Sarah released the drunk man and stepped back, her heart rate already returning to baseline. Training. Always the training. "Tony," she called to the manager. "You want to call the cops, or should I just escort this gentleman outside?" Before Tony could answer, Vincent stood up and walked toward them. His footsteps were silent despite his obvious weight, and when he reached the bar, he positioned himself at an angle that let him see both Sarah and the subdued drunk without putting his back to the door. "No need to call the police," Vincent said quietly. "Mr. Bradley here was just leaving." "Weren't you, Bradley?" The drunk man saw who was speaking and went very still. "Mr. Moretti, I didn't know. You put your hands on one of our staff members. In my experience, that qualifies as trouble." Bradley nodded frantically. Sarah released him completely. He scrambled up, threw $300 bills on the bar, and practically ran for the exit. The moment the door closed, the restaurant's noise returned. But Vincent was still at the bar, still looking at Sarah with those calculating eyes. "You're ex-military," he said. It wasn't a question. Sarah's spine stiffened. "I used to be a lot of things. Now I'm a waitress." A waitress who disarms drunk men in 3 seconds flat using nerve strikes and joint manipulation that they don't teach in basic self-defense classes. Vincent tilted his head. "What branch?" "Army. Marines." "Does it matter?" "It might." Sarah recognized the evaluation in his tone. "My past is my business. I handled the situation. The customer is gone. Can we just pretend this never happened?" Vincent smiled. "I don't think pretending is going to work. Not after half the restaurant just watched you put Bradley on the ground." He was right. Sarah glanced around and saw the stairs, the smartphones that had probably captured video. "I should get back to work," Sarah said, turning away. "Actually," Vincent said, his voice stopping her mid-step, "I think you should take your break. Come sit with me for a moment." It wasn't a request. Sarah could refuse, but something in his expression suggested that would only make things more complicated. Besides, her hands were still shaking from adrenaline. 5 minutes, Sarah said. She followed him to his corner booth. The position offered a view of both entrances, with clear sight lines to every table. Vincent had positioned himself with his back to the wall, the same way she would have chosen. "Can I get you something to drink?" Vincent asked. "I'm working, and I don't drink anymore." Vincent nodded, accepting the boundary. "Then tell me about yourself. How does someone with your obvious training end up serving steaks in downtown Chicago?" Sarah leaned back, buying time to decide how much truth to share. "I joined the Army when I was 18. Did 2 tours overseas. Got out when my contract was up. Came to Chicago because it was far from where I grew up and big enough to disappear in." "2 tours where?" "Places that don't like visitors." "And what did you do in these places?" Sarah met his eyes directly. "I kept Americans alive. That's all you need to know." Vincent considered her for a long moment, then nodded. "I respect that. The past is the past." "Exactly. Except your present just became significantly more complicated. Bradley is an associate at Morrison & Finch, one of the biggest law firms in the city. He's also the nephew of Marcus Bradley, who sits on the city council. By tomorrow morning, there will be a version of tonight's events that makes you look like the aggressor." Sarah's stomach dropped. "He grabbed me. I defended myself." "In a perfect world, yes. But we don't live in a perfect world. We live in one where powerful men protect their own, where security camera footage can be edited, and witnesses develop amnesia when money changes hands." "So what do I do?" "You could wait for them to come after you," Vincent said quietly. "Or you could accept my help." "Your help?" "I have certain resources, connections, the kind of influence that could make this problem disappear before it becomes a real issue." Sarah studied his face. "What's the catch?" Vincent smiled. "You're smart. I like that. The catch is simple. I want you to work for me." "I already work at your restaurant." "No, you work at my cousin's restaurant. I want you to work for me directly. Personal security, executive protection, the kind of work that requires your particular skill set." Sarah's mind raced through the implications. "I got out of that life for a reason. I don't want to go back." "I'm not asking you to go back. There's a difference between being a soldier and being someone's protection. One involves taking orders you might not agree with. The other involves making your own choices about who deserves your loyalty." "And you think you deserve my loyalty?" "I think we both understand what it means to live with violence. I can offer you resources, legal protection, and compensation that reflects the value of your skills. All I ask in return is that you use those skills to protect me and my interests." Sarah wanted to say no, but Bradley's family had resources that could destroy her. Without protection, she was just another veteran trying to build a quiet life in a city that didn't particularly care. "I need to think about it," Sarah said finally. "Of course. Take the night." Vincent pulled out a business card and placed it on the table. "Call me by tomorrow night. After that, the offer expires." He stood. "And Sarah, if you decide to walk away, I'll still make sure the Bradley situation doesn't become a problem. Consider that a gesture of good faith." Vincent left. Sarah sat alone with the business card, feeling the weight of the choice pressing down on her. By the time her shift ended at midnight, Sarah had made her decision. She changed and walked to the Red Line station, her brain still cataloging exits and threats even though she told herself Chicago wasn't Kandahar. Her apartment was a studio in Pilsen, 500 square feet holding a bed, a small kitchen, and not much else. She dropped her keys and went through her nightly routine. Check the locks, check the windows, check the closet and bathroom because the part of her brain that had kept her alive in combat zones demanded verification. Only then did she pull out Vincent's card and sit on her bed, staring at the phone number. Her phone rang. Unknown number. "Miss Chen." The voice was unfamiliar, male official. "This is Detective Marcus Richardson with the Chicago PD. I'd like to ask you some questions about an incident at Romano Steakhouse." Sarah's heart rate spiked. "It's late, Detective. Can this wait until morning?" "I'm afraid not. Mr. Bradley has filed a complaint alleging assault. I need to hear your side." "Mr. Bradley grabbed me inappropriately. I defended myself using reasonable force. According to witnesses, you used martial arts techniques. That goes beyond reasonable force for most people. Most people aren't trained in self-defense. I am. That doesn't make my response unreasonable. There was a pause. Miss Chen, Bradley's family has connections. They're pushing for charges. Can you come to the station tomorrow morning? 9 a.m. Sarah considered her options. I'll be there. But detective, I have security footage, witness statements, and a lawyer. If this goes to court, it won't be easy. She was bluffing. She didn't have a lawyer. Fair enough. I'll see you at 9. He hung up. Sarah sat holding her phone, feeling the weight of Vincent's offer settling over her. He'd offered protection, resources, legal support. She looked at the photograph on her wall. 12 soldiers smiling at the camera. 3 hadn't made it home. 4 had come back changed. Only 2 had built something resembling normal lives. She wasn't sure which category she fell into anymore. Her phone was in her hand before she consciously decided. Vincent's number rang twice. Sarah, he said, like he'd been expecting her. I take it you've made your decision. The police just called. Bradley filed assault charges. They want me at the station tomorrow. I see. And I need your help. But I have conditions. I'm listening. I don't hurt innocent people. I don't do anything illegal unless you can convince me it's necessary. And if I ever think you're lying to me about what I'm really protecting, I walk away. Vincent was quiet for a moment. Agreed. Though I should warn you that illegal and necessary can be subjective in my line of work. Then we'll cross those bridges when we come to them. Do we have a deal? We do. Don't go to the police station tomorrow. I'll have my attorney handle Detective Richardson. You just focus on getting ready for your new job. What does that involve? Meet me at Romano's tomorrow at noon. Bring anything you might need for an extended stay elsewhere. We're going to need to keep you somewhere secure until the Bradley situation is resolved. Sarah wanted to argue, but Bradley's family had resources she couldn't match. Fighting them alone would be impossible. Fine. Tomorrow at noon. But Vincent, if this turns out to be some kind of trap, you'll regret it. Vincent laughed. Sarah, if I wanted to control you, I'd have offered you something you wanted instead of something you need. Get some sleep. Tomorrow is going to be a long day. Sarah sat on her bed, staring at her phone, wondering what she just agreed to. Outside her window, Chicago hummed with its eternal midnight energy. She just made her decision. Now she had to live with the consequences. The penthouse occupied the entire 42nd floor of a building in River North. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Chicago that made the city look like a living organism. The furniture was modern but comfortable, and art hung on the walls, original pieces, not generic prints. This is where you live? Sarah asked, setting her duffel bag down. One of the places I live, Vincent replied. You'll have your own suite. Bedroom, bathroom, sitting area. Completely private. The suite was larger than her entire apartment. Windows faced east toward the lake. This is temporary, right? She asked. That depends. The immediate threat should be resolved within a week or 2. But Sarah, I need someone with your skills on a permanent basis. She turned from the window. You already have security. 6 actually. You missed 2 in the kitchen, and 1 posing as a homeless man across the street. Vincent's expression showed approval. But those men provide perimeter security and respond to overt threats. I need someone who can stay close, assess situations from inside, make split-second decisions during meetings or social events. Someone who doesn't look like security. Sarah understood. His regular guards were visible deterrents. He needed someone who could blend in until the moment her skills became necessary. How often are you in situations dangerous enough to need that? More often than I'd like. I have to meet with people who'd rather see me dead than negotiating. Rival families, corrupt officials, business associates who think they can leverage violence. Every meeting is a potential ambush. There was weariness in his voice, the bone-deep fatigue from years of constant vigilance. She recognized it because she felt it herself. When do I start? Tonight. I have a meeting at 9 p.m. with representatives from a shipping company. The owner has ties to the Castellano family, and they've been testing boundaries. The Castellanos, your rivals? One of several. The meeting is at a restaurant in the Loop. Neutral territory. Both sides bringing 2 people each. Weapons are theoretically forbidden, but everyone will be armed. Your job is to stay close, assess the Castellanos, and intervene if things go sideways. Sarah sat across from him. I need to know your rules of engagement. Vincent leaned forward. You're authorized to use whatever force is necessary to protect me or yourself from imminent threat. If someone threatens you with a gun, you put them down however you can, as quickly as you can. If I'm incapacitated, you extract yourself and anyone else I designate to safety. My second-in-command is Marco Ricci, former Marine. He'll coordinate with you on tactical matters. What happens if I have to kill someone to protect you? Vincent didn't hesitate. Then I make sure you're protected legally, that any investigation concludes it was justified, and that you have access to whatever support you need psychologically. I don't expect you to be comfortable with killing. I just expect you to be willing when there's no other choice. It was the honest answer. Sarah respected him for not pretending. Okay, I'm in, but I'm going to need equipment. Body armor, communication gear. Already arranged. Marco will meet you this afternoon. Vincent stood. Thank you for trusting me. I'll do everything I can to prove that trust wasn't misplaced. Marco arrived 3 hours later. 6 feet tall, broad shoulders, close-cropped gray hair, and eyes that recognized combat in others. He carried a tactical bag. Sarah Chen, he said, extending his hand. Marco Ricci. Vincent says your army. What unit? 75th Ranger Regiment. 2nd Battalion. 2 tours in Afghanistan, 1 in Iraq. Marco's eyebrows rose. Rangers. Impressive. For the next hour, Marco briefed Sarah on Chicago's organized crime landscape. The Castellanos were one of the old families, but they'd been losing ground for the past decade. They saw Vincent as both a threat and an opportunity. Tonight's meeting is supposedly about shipping routes, Marco explained. But what they actually want is to find a weakness they can exploit. They'll be watching Vincent, looking for pressure points. He showed Sarah photographs of the key players. Tony Castellano is impulsive and aggressive. He's your primary concern. Michael is a pragmatist. Old Castellano is sharp but declining. If Tony makes a move, you shut it down immediately. Sarah nodded, her mind running tactical scenarios. Marco pulled body armor from his bag. This is rated for most handgun rounds. Won't stop everything, but it'll give you a chance. They spent another hour going over equipment and protocols. By the time Marco left at 6 p.m., Sarah's head was spinning with information. She had 3 hours before the meeting. Time to eat, review the briefing materials, and quiet the anxiety building in her chest. Vincent returned around 8. He'd removed his jacket, and Sarah could see the subtle bulk of body armor under his shirt. He'd been wearing protection all day. You wear that everywhere, she asked. Everywhere that matters. I've survived 2 assassination attempts and 1 car bombing. The armor is why I'm still here. They sat in comfortable silence, the city lights glowing as sunset painted the sky. Can I ask you something? Sarah said. Of course. Why do you do this? You're clearly intelligent enough to succeed in legitimate business. So why choose this life? Vincent was quiet for a moment. My grandfather came to Chicago from Sicily in 1935 with nothing but a 3rd-grade education. He worked for the old families, earning respect through loyalty. By the time my father was born, he built something real. Power, influence, the ability to protect our family and neighborhood. He leaned back. I inherited that responsibility when my father died. Could I have walked away? Maybe. But then what happens to the people who depend on me? The businesses under my protection, the families who've worked for us for generations, the neighborhoods that stay safe because harming innocents brings consequences. You see yourself as a protector. I see myself as someone who maintains order in spaces where the law is absent or corrupt. Does that make me a good person? Probably not, but it makes me a necessary one. My turn to ask a question, Vincent said. Why did you really leave the military? Sarah's jaw tightened. We were doing a routine patrol in Kandahar province. Intelligence said the area was secure. Except intelligence was wrong. We walked into an ambush. She could see it clearly. The explosion that killed their point man, the gunfire from every direction, her squad members going down. I killed 7 people that day. When it was over, 3 of my people were dead, 4 were wounded, and I was covered in blood. Vincent listened without interrupting. The army gave me a medal. My therapist said I had PTSD. I said I was done being the person who killed people for a living. Sarah met Vincent's eyes. So I got out, started working jobs that let me pretend I was normal. And for 5 years, it almost worked. Until last night. Vincent stood and walked to the window. You know what I think? I think you were trying to suppress a fundamental part of who you are. The part that's good at violence, that understands threat assessment, that makes hard decisions. That's not something you can just turn off. Maybe I don't want to be good at violence. Nobody wants to be good at it. But some of us are, and pretending otherwise doesn't make us better people. It just makes us dishonest about our nature. Sarah wanted to argue, but sitting here wearing body armor and preparing for a meeting where she might have to hurt people, the argument felt hollow. We should get ready, Vincent said, checking his watch. Meeting's at 9. The restaurant was called Lucia's, upscale Italian in the Loop. Neutral territory. Carlo dropped them at the entrance. Tony Castellano sat at the head of the table, flanked by 6 men. He was 35, handsome from expensive grooming, wearing a suit that cost more than Sarah had earned in 6 months. Michael Castellano sat to Tony's right, older and more reserved. Vincent, Tony said, not standing. You're late. I'm exactly on time, Vincent replied, checking his watch. 8:45, as we agreed. And who's this? I thought we agreed 2 people each. You agreed to bring 2 people. You brought 6. Vincent sat down. Sarah is my personal assistant. She's here to take notes. Sarah positioned herself behind Vincent's chair, hands clasped in a posture that looked professional while actually positioning her perfectly to draw her weapon if necessary. Tony's men assessed her and dismissed her as irrelevant. Perfect. Let's talk about the shipping situation, Tony said. You've been undercutting our prices by 15%. That ends tonight. I've been offering better service at competitive rates, Vincent corrected. That's called capitalism. Tony's face flushed. You think you're so smart, don't you? But you're not better. You're just newer money playing at being old family. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. Michael placed a hand on Tony's arm. What Tony means is we're concerned about market stability. We're proposing a price-fixing agreement. I'm not interested in artificially inflating prices just to protect your profit margins, Vincent said. If you want to compete, improve your service, modernize your operations. Or, Tony said, his voice dropping, we could just eliminate the competition. The temperature dropped 10 degrees. Sarah's hand moved fractionally closer to her weapon. Vincent didn't move. Are you threatening me, Tony? In neutral ground? I'm explaining reality. My family built the city's port operations before your father was born. Your family lost port operations because you got lazy, corrupt, and inefficient, Vincent replied calmly. Tony stood abruptly. His men tensed. Michael stood too. Tony, sit down. Fuck sitting down. This arrogant bastard needs to learn that you don't disrespect the Castellano family. Sarah moved, repositioning herself between Tony and Vincent. Mr. Castellano, I suggest you sit down. Tony's eyes focused on her. And who the fuck are you to tell me what to do? I'm the person who's going to make you regret it if you take one more step toward Mr. Moretti. One of Tony's men laughed. You brought a secretary as muscle? Sarah ignored the commentary, her attention locked on Tony's hands. Sarah, Vincent said quietly. It's fine. Tony's just posturing. Aren't you, Tony? Michael made the decision. We're leaving. Tony, let's go. Tony stared at Vincent, his face red with rage and humiliation. Then Michael guided him toward the door. His men followed, one bumping Sarah's shoulder as he passed. When the door closed, the tension deflated. Vincent remained seated, his expression thoughtful. Well, Vincent said, that went better than expected. Better? Sarah stared at him. Tony practically declared war. Tony made threats he can't back up without destroying his family's reputation. Michael knows it. What we learned tonight is that the Castellanos are desperate, divided, and dangerous because they're cornered. That's useful intelligence. 3 days later, Sunday morning, the attack came. Sarah was in the penthouse gym when her phone buzzed with an emergency alert. Unauthorized access attempt. Underground parking level. Multiple subjects. She was moving before processing the threat. Gun drawn, body armor grabbed, earpiece activated. "Marco, you seeing this?" she said. "Seeing it. 6 subjects, heavily armed, bypassing security. They're coming for Vincent. Get him to the safe room." Sarah ran to Vincent's office, weapon up. Vincent looked up, his expression shifting to understanding. "We're under attack," Sarah said. "Safe room. Now." Vincent moved immediately toward the concealed door behind his bookshelf. Gunfire echoed up through the building. Automatic weapons. "Get inside," she told Vincent. "Don't open it for anyone except me or Marco. Sarah, if these are professionals, trust me. I've survived worse odds." She pulled away, moving back to the main area. Behind her, the safe room door sealed. Now she just had to keep Vincent safe. Sarah positioned herself behind the kitchen island, weapon up. Marco's voice crackled in her ear. 4 hostiles down in parking. 2 got past US, heading to the elevator. Carlo's wounded but stable. Copy. I've got the penthouse. Vincent's secure. Sarah, these guys are wearing military-grade body armor. Center mass shots won't drop them. Aim for the head or pelvis. Understood. The elevator chimed. The door slid apart. 2 men emerged wearing tactical gear. Ballistic helmets, plate carriers, rifle optics. They moved with coordination, one covering high, one low. Sarah fired, aiming for the lead man's pelvis. The round caught him above the hip joint, shattering bone. He went down screaming. The second man swung his rifle toward Sarah, but she was already moving, flanking left. He fired bursts that punched holes in the cabinetry. Sarah popped up from behind the couch, acquiring a sight picture on his exposed neck. 1 shot. The man dropped. 2 down. Status. Still pursuing. There might be more. Sarah moved through the penthouse, clearing rooms. She found the 3rd attacker in her suite, going through her belongings. "On your knees," Sarah commanded. The man smiled. "You're Sarah Chen, former Army Ranger. The Castellanos want me to tell you something." "I don't care what the Castellanos want. They want you to know you picked the wrong side. That Vincent Moretti can't protect you forever." Sarah's finger tightened on the trigger. "Last chance. On your knees." The man moved fast, reaching inside his jacket. Sarah fired twice, center mass. The impact staggered him but didn't drop him. He pulled a pistol. She adjusted her aim, firing once more. This round caught him in the throat. He went down gurgling. "God damn it," she whispered, watching him die. Marco's voice. "Sarah, sniper team setting up across the street. Get away from the windows." Sarah hit the light switches, plunging the penthouse into darkness. She positioned herself covering both elevator and stairwell. She'd killed 3 people in 4 minutes. 3 human beings who probably had families, dead because they'd attacked Vincent, because Sarah had been good at her job. The guilt would come later. The building's fire alarm started blaring. Someone had pulled it. Sarah's instincts screamed that professional hit squads didn't pull fire alarms, they used them. "Marco, the alarm, I know. Smoke screen for extraction." But Sarah was worried about the fire alarm forcing the safe room's emergency protocols. If the fire suppression activated, the safe room automatically unsealed. Sarah ran back to Vincent's office, reaching the door just as it started to open. The automated override had triggered. Vincent emerged, holding a Glock 19. His eyes swept for threats before settling on Sarah. "False alarm?" he asked. "Attack vector." They knew about the fire override. Sarah positioned herself between Vincent and the door. "We need somewhere more defensible." "Where?" "The penthouse is compromised." Sarah remembered the piano room. Small space, 1 entrance, reinforced door. The piano room. 1 entry point. Solid door, no windows. Vincent nodded. They reached it without encountering threats. Bodies lay where Sarah had dropped them, blood pooling on expensive floors. Vincent's expression flickered when he saw the carnage. Sarah sealed the door, positioning herself to cover the entrance while keeping Vincent behind her. "Are you hurt?" Vincent asked quietly. "No. You?" "No." He was quiet. Sarah, I'm sorry. I didn't think they'd move this fast. 3 people are dead because you were protecting me. This is Tony Castellano's fault. You didn't send armed men. But you're here in danger because I hired you. How is that not my responsibility? We can discuss responsibility later. Right now, stay quiet and let me do my job. Police arrived 7 minutes later. SWAT cleared the building while patrol officers evacuated residents. The aftermath was exactly what Sarah expected. Endless questions, walkthroughs, evidence collection. Vincent's attorney arrived quickly, handling the police with efficiency. The 3 dead attackers were identified as contract killers with ties to various organizations. No direct evidence linking them to the Castellanos, but enough circumstantial connections that everyone knew. By 3 p.m., Sarah had been awake 31 hours straight. Her body was crashing from adrenaline, her hands shaking from exhaustion. You need to sleep, Vincent said, watching her sway. I need to secure the perimeter. Marco and his team are handling that. You're no use to me if you collapse from exhaustion. Her knees buckled. Vincent moved closer, steadying her elbow. Come on, let me help you to your suite. Vincent guided her to her bedroom, his arm around her waist. He helped her sit on the bed, then knelt to remove her shoes. I've got you, he said quietly. You're safe now. You can rest. Sarah lay back, her weapon still holstered because old habits wouldn't allow her to be completely unarmed. Vincent pulled a blanket over her. Thank you for keeping your promise. Sarah's eyes were closing. Just doing my job, she mumbled. It's more than that, and we both know it. Sarah fell asleep, dreaming of Kandahar and Chicago bleeding together, enemies with Tony Castellano's face. She woke 16 hours later to find Vincent sitting in the armchair by her window, reading by lamplight. He'd changed, showered, but he'd come back to keep watch. What time is it? Sarah asked. 8 p.m. Monday evening. You slept through most of the day. Sarah took inventory. Sore muscles, headache, emotional numbness. Like I got hit by a truck. But functional. Good. Because we need to talk about what happens next. Sarah sat up. If you're about to fire me, fire you? Sarah, you saved my life. Why would I fire you? Because 3 people died here. Because the Castellanos now know I'm a target. Vincent sat on the edge of her bed. You're not a liability. You're an asset, a friend, and if I'm being honest, the first person in years who I trust without ulterior motives. What happened proved I was right to hire you. It also proved the situation is escalating beyond what we anticipated. What do you want to do about it? I want to end it. Permanently. Vincent's jaw tightened. Tony ordered a hit on me in my own home. That crosses every line. The other families will support whatever response I choose, as long as it's proportional and decisive. Sarah understood. What kind of response? That depends on you. I can handle this the traditional way. Leverage, political pressure, economic warfare that destroys them slowly. That's the smart play. But it takes months or years, and Tony might try again. Might send more men after me or you. The faster option is direct action. We find Tony, we make him answer for what he did, and we make it clear that attacking Vincent Moretti has consequences. You're talking about killing him. I'm talking about justice in a world where legal justice doesn't exist for people like us. Tony violated every code that makes our world function. The appropriate response is proportional elimination of the threat. Sarah should have been horrified, but sitting here after violence Tony had initiated, knowing he'd try again, her combat brain and moral compass were surprisingly aligned. Tony Castellano was a threat requiring permanent solution. If we do this, Sarah said slowly, we do it right. Planned, precise, minimal collateral damage. No innocent casualties. We're not monsters, even if we're making monstrous choices. Vincent's expression shifted to relief or respect. Agreed. Marco and I have contingency plans. If you're willing to be part of that operation, I'd value your tactical input. When? Friday night. High-stakes poker game at a private club in the Gold Coast. Tony never misses it. He'll feel safe because it's neutral territory. Neutral territory he's already proven he doesn't respect, Sarah said. The attack on your penthouse changed the rules. Sarah stood and walked to the window, looking at Chicago's nighttime skyline. Millions of lights, millions of people with no idea that others were planning violence and calling it justice. After Tony is dead, what then? Sarah asked. Does the violence stop? Or is this just the beginning of an escalating cycle? Vincent's reflection appeared beside her. I won't lie and say this solves everything. There will always be threats. But what happened wasn't normal escalation. It was aberrant violence from someone who's lost control. Stopping Tony prevents his particular chaos and sends a message. Might, Vincent agreed. There are no guarantees. All we can do is make choices we can live with. Sarah turned to face him. Okay, I'm in. But Vincent, after this is done, we need to talk about the long-term plan. I can't do this forever. I need to know there's an endgame. Vincent took her hand. I promise you, Sarah, after this is handled, we'll talk about the future. You're not just an employee to me. You're important. In ways I'm still figuring out how to articulate. You're important to me too, she said quietly. Which terrifies me. Then we'll just have to make sure neither of us becomes a statistic. The next 3 days passed in intensive planning. Marco briefed them on the club's layout, security protocols, Tony's patterns. Sarah provided tactical input, identifying optimal positions, calculating sight lines and response times. Thursday night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She lay watching the city lights, thinking about who she'd been versus who she'd become. The distance should have been unbridgeable. Instead, it felt like a straight line. Around 2 a.m., she went to the living room. Vincent was at his piano, playing something soft and melancholic. He didn't stop when she entered. She sat on the couch listening. The music expressed what neither could say with words, that they were both trapped in lives they'd chosen but hadn't fully understood. When the piece ended, Vincent turned to face her. Chopin. My mother used to play it when my father's business kept him out all night. It's beautiful, Sarah said. Sad, but beautiful. That describes most of my life. Vincent moved to sit beside her. Can't sleep. Can't stop thinking about tomorrow. About what we're about to do. You've killed before. This isn't fundamentally different. It feels different. Those were immediate threats, reactive violence. Tomorrow is premeditated. That crosses a line I'm not sure I can uncross. Vincent's hand found hers in the darkness. Sarah, whatever happens after this, I want you to know that I value you. Not just as security, but as a person who's chosen to stand with me. That means something. It means something to me too. Sarah admitted, which is probably unhealthy. But right now, it feels like the only real thing in a life full of pretense. After tomorrow, I'd like to take you somewhere. Somewhere normal. A restaurant where nobody's trying to kill us. A museum. A walk along the lake. Would you let me do that? Sarah felt tears threatening. Vincent, we can't be normal people. Maybe not. But we could try. Just for a few hours. The hope in his voice broke something in Sarah's chest. Okay. After tomorrow. After we do this terrible thing. We'll go to a museum and pretend we're people who deserve to look at beautiful things. Vincent pulled her closer, and they sat like that for a long time. Two people who'd chosen darkness finding temporary light in each other. Sarah fell asleep on Vincent's shoulder around 4 a.m. When she woke at 7, she was in her own bed with a note on her nightstand. You looked peaceful. Didn't want to wake you. Coffee's ready when you are. Today was the day. At 8 p.m., Sarah was dressed and armed, her body armor concealed under a fitted black jacket. Vincent emerged wearing an expensive suit, looking every inch the powerful criminal. But when their eyes met, she saw the same anxiety reflected back. Ready? He asked. As I'll ever be. The Gold Coast Club occupied the top floor of a historic building. Annual membership cost more than most people's yearly salary. Vincent moved through it like he belonged. The doorman greeted him by name. The club was all dark wood and leather, expensive cigars and older whiskey. Tony was at his usual table, surrounded by 6 bodyguards, losing at poker. He's already on edge, Sarah murmured. That makes him dangerous or careless. Probably both. After 20 minutes of social performance, Vincent approached Tony's table. Tony, can we talk? Tony looked up. You've got balls showing up here. What happened at my penthouse was attempted murder. I think we need to discuss which incident warrants retaliation. The table went silent. Tony's bodyguard shifted closer. Private conversation, Vincent said calmly. Unless you want to discuss your family's failures in front of everyone. Tony stood, flushing with anger. Fine. But my guys come. 1 bodyguard each. Neutral ground rules. Tony jerked his head at his largest guard. Vincent led them to a private room he'd reserved. Sarah entered last, positioning herself to cover both bodyguards. The door closed with a soft click. So, Tony said, throwing himself into a chair. You wanted to talk. Talk. Vincent remained standing. The hit on my penthouse. That was you, yes? I don't know what you're talking about. Tony, we're past plausible deniability. 3 men attacked my home with military weapons. You ordered that strike, violating every protocol. Tony's laugh was bitter. Nothing about our business is acceptable, Vincent. So don't lecture me about protocols when we're all criminals pretending to have honor. There's a difference between being a criminal and being chaos incarnate. You're the latter, and chaos hurts everyone. My father's legacy is dying. Michael's too cautious. Someone has to take aggressive action. And you thought that meant sending hitmen to murder me in my sleep? I thought it meant removing obstacles. You're the biggest obstacle. The only way to compete is to eliminate you. Vincent's expression didn't change. And now that your hit failed, Tony's hand moved toward his jacket. Sarah's weapon was out and aimed at his head before he could complete the motion. Hands where I can see them. Now. Tony's bodyguard reached for his weapon, but Vincent's Glock was pressed against the man's temple. Don't. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. 4 armed people calculating odds. You're going to shoot me in neutral ground? Tony asked. Every family in Chicago will turn against you. I'm going to defend myself when you reach for a weapon, Vincent replied calmly. And given that you already violated neutral ground by attacking my penthouse, the other families will understand. Then you've made your choice, Vincent said quietly. Sarah saw it in Vincent's eyes. The shift from negotiation to execution. The acceptance that Tony couldn't be reasoned with. She fired. The round caught Tony's center forehead. He slumped in the chair, his expression frozen in surprise. Tony's bodyguard jerked toward Vincent, but Vincent's weapon fired twice, dropping him. It was done. 30 seconds from negotiation to execution. Tony Castellano was dead. Sarah lowered her weapon. She'd killed before, but never like this. Never with such premeditation. This was murder. Sarah, Vincent said gently. We need to move. Marco's waiting. She nodded mechanically. Vincent locked the door, buying time. They moved through the club with practiced casualness. 2 people leaving early. Carlo was waiting, the Mercedes running. They slid into the back seat, and he pulled into traffic smoothly. Clean. Marco's voice crackled. Clean, Vincent replied. Casualties as planned. Copy. Head to the safe house. The safe house was a nondescript condo in Lincoln Park. Sarah sat on the couch, her weapon still holstered, her hands clasped to keep them from shaking. She'd murdered someone tonight. Shot him in the head at point-blank range while he sat in a chair. Vincent sat beside her, close but not touching. Talk to me. Whatever you're feeling, you don't have to carry it alone. I murdered someone tonight. Not in combat. Not in self-defense. I executed a man. You eliminated a threat that had already demonstrated willingness to commit mass violence. Tony would have tried again. What you did tonight saved lives. That's rationalization. Murder is still murder. Maybe. But we live in a world where legal justice doesn't apply. You made a hard choice tonight. The right choice, even if it doesn't feel right. Sarah looked at him. How do you live with it? All the violence, all the deaths. How do you wake up every morning? Vincent was quiet. I don't pretend. I know exactly what I am. But I also know that violence is currency in this world. So I do what's necessary, and I try to sleep by believing the order I maintain prevents worse chaos. I need you to know something, she said finally. What happened tonight, that's not sustainable for me. I can't keep killing people. This needs to be the end of it. I understand, Vincent said. And I promise you, this was exceptional circumstances. My goal isn't to turn you into an assassin. Sarah leaned back. Vincent, about that museum trip. I think I need that even more now. Then that's what we'll do. Tomorrow, we'll go somewhere beautiful. Deal. They sat together, two people who'd committed terrible violence trying to find comfort in each other's presence. Sarah closed her eyes and imagined a different future. One where she and Vincent could actually be normal. It was probably a fantasy. But for tonight, she let herself believe in the possibility of something better. And when Vincent's hand found hers, when their fingers interlaced, she held on tight. 3 days later, Sarah and Vincent stood in the Art Institute of Chicago, looking at a Monet painting that captured light on water. The Castellano family had responded with surprising restraint. Michael had taken control and proposed a truce. The other families had tacitly approved. Justice, such as it was, had been served. It's beautiful, Sarah said. I'd forgotten that beautiful things could exist alongside all the darkness. They always do, Vincent replied. The trick is remembering to look for them. Sarah turned to look at him. Thank you for bringing me here, for keeping your promise. Thank you for trusting me enough to accept it. Vincent's hand found hers, their fingers interlacing in broad daylight. A declaration that they were more than just boss and bodyguard. They were Sarah and Vincent. Two people trying to build something real in a world that rewarded illusions. Two people who'd seen the worst of humanity and chosen to look for the best anyway. It wouldn't be easy. Their lives would always carry darkness. But standing here looking at beauty, Sarah felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope, not for a perfect future or a life without consequences, but for the possibility that she and Vincent could navigate the darkness together and still remember what it felt like to be human. Ready to go? Vincent asked. Sarah squeezed his hand. Actually, can we stay a little longer? I want to remember what this feels like. Vincent smiled, genuine and warm. We can stay as long as you want. We have all the time in the world. They didn't, of course. Nobody did. But for these precious hours in a museum, where the only danger was accidentally triggering a security alarm, they could pretend. Could be Sarah and Vincent, could look at art and hold hands and imagine futures that might actually be possible. And that, Sarah decided, was more than she'd ever hoped to have. It was enough. The morning after the museum, Sarah woke to the smell of coffee and something else, pancakes. She pulled on her robe and padded into the penthouse kitchen to find Vincent at the stove, spatula in hand, looking completely out of place in his expensive pajamas while flipping what appeared to be blueberry pancakes. You cook? Sarah asked, leaning against the doorframe. Vincent glanced over his shoulder, a slight smile playing at his lips. I have many skills that might surprise you. My mother insisted that all her children know how to feed themselves. She said depending on others for basic survival was a vulnerability we couldn't afford. Smart woman. She is. Vincent plated the pancakes with surprising care. She lives in Florida now. Retired from the family business, as she calls it. Spends her days playing bridge and pretending her sons are accountants. Sarah sat at the kitchen island, accepting the plate he slid across to her. Does she know what you really do? Of course. But there's knowing and there's acknowledging. She chose peaceful ignorance over complicated truth. I respect that choice. They ate in comfortable silence, the kind that had developed between them over the past weeks. Outside the windows, Chicago stretched toward the horizon, the morning sun catching the glass towers and turning them into columns of light. Marco called while you were sleeping, Vincent said, refilling her coffee. The Castellano situation is officially resolved. Michael sent word through proper channels that he considers the matter closed. Tony's actions were unauthorized. His death was justified under the codes we all operate by, and the family wishes to maintain peaceful relations going forward. Sarah set down her fork. Just like that. We kill his nephew and he's fine with it. Michael's not fine with it, but he's pragmatic. Tony was becoming a liability that would have destroyed the family if left unchecked. Michael knows that, the other families know that, and everyone's relieved that someone else handled the problem they were all worried about. So we did them a favor by murdering Tony. Vincent heard the edge in her voice. Sarah, I know you're struggling with what happened. I am too. But in our world, sometimes the only way to prevent greater violence is through targeted violence. Tony would have kept escalating until dozens of people were dead and multiple families were at war. What we did was surgical. Precise. It saved lives. By ending one. Yes. Vincent didn't look away. And that's a weight we both have to carry. But it's a weight I'd rather carry than the weight of all the deaths that would have followed if we'd done nothing. Sarah wanted to argue, wanted to find fault in his logic, but she couldn't. She'd spent 5 years trying to forget that sometimes violence was the only answer to violence. Working for Vincent had forced her to remember what she'd learned in combat zones, that moral clarity was a luxury afforded to people who didn't have to make impossible choices. I need to do something today, Sarah said, pushing her empty plate away. Something that reminds me I'm more than just a weapon. What did you have in mind? There's a veterans center on the south side. They do job training, mental health support, housing assistance. I used to volunteer there before. She gestured vaguely at the penthouse. Before all this, I'd like to go back, see if they still need help. Vincent studied her for a moment. That's a good idea, but you're not going alone. Vincent, it's a veterans center, not a war zone. The Castellanos may have accepted Tony's death, but that doesn't mean everyone in their organization got the memo. Until we're certain there are no splinter factions looking for revenge, you have security. Non-negotiable. Sarah wanted to protest, but she recognized the steel beneath his calm tone. This wasn't a discussion. Fine, but whoever you send stays outside. These people have seen enough violence. They don't need armed guards in their safe space. Agreed. I'll have Carlo drive you. He's former military himself. He'll understand. An hour later, Sarah found herself in the back of the Mercedes heading south, watching the city transform as they left the gleaming towers of downtown behind. The neighborhoods here were rougher, buildings showing their age, prosperity harder to find. But there was life here too, people heading to work, kids playing on sidewalks, communities that functioned despite being forgotten by the wealth concentrated in places like River North. The Veterans Center occupied a converted warehouse, its brick facade painted with a mural of American flags and soldiers returning home. Sarah felt something tighten in her chest as Carlo pulled up to the curb. I'll be right here, Carlo said, his gravelly voice gentler than usual. You need me, you call. Otherwise, take your time. Sarah nodded and stepped out into the morning sunshine. The door chimed as she entered, and the smell hit her immediately. Coffee, industrial cleaner, and something else. Hope maybe, or at least the effort to create hope in a place where it had been in short supply. Sarah Chen, is that really you? The voice belonged to Marcus Washington, the center's director. He was 65, with silver hair and eyes that had seen 2 tours in Vietnam, and somehow still managed to find joy in helping younger veterans navigate their own wars after the war. Hey, Marcus, Sarah said, accepting his bare hug. I know it's been a while. A while? Try 8 months, girl. We thought you'd vanished. Or worse. It's complicated. Marcus pulled back, studying her face with the intensity of someone who'd learned to read trauma in others. You look different. Harder around the edges. But also more settled, if that makes sense. Like you've stopped fighting yourself. Sarah felt tears threatening and blinked them away. Can I help out today? Even just for a few hours? I need to remember what I'm supposed to be protecting. Marcus's expression softened. We always need help. You remember Jenny Rodriguez? She's running a job skills workshop in 20 minutes. Could use an extra set of hands. The next 4 hours passed in a blur of activity that felt more grounding than anything Sarah had done since joining Vincent's world. She helped veterans update their resumes, practiced mock interviews, shared her own story of transition from military to civilian life, leaving out the recent detour into organized crime. During a break, she found herself in the center's small kitchen making coffee when a young woman appeared in the doorway. She couldn't have been more than 25, with haunted eyes that Sarah recognized from her own mirror. You're Sarah, right? Marcus said you were Rangers. That's right. 2nd Battalion. The woman nodded slowly. I was Marines. 2 tours in Helmand Province. Got out last year and I've been. She trailed off, her hands twisting together. I've been having a hard time. Sarah set down the coffee pot and gave the woman her full attention. What's your name? Specialist Reese. I mean just Reese now. I keep forgetting I'm not Specialist anymore. Reese, I'm going to tell you something I wish someone had told me when I first got out. Sarah leaned against the counter, keeping her posture open and non-threatening. "You're never just anything now. You're always going to be a Marine. That doesn't go away. But you also get to be other things too. And sometimes the hardest part is figuring out how to be both." "But how do you do it?" Reese's voice cracked. "How do you go from being a warrior to being normal? How do you turn it off?" "You don't turn it off. You learn to channel it differently. You find purposes that matter, people worth protecting, reasons to get up in the morning that aren't about survival." Sarah thought about Vincent, about the penthouse, about the complicated life she'd built. It won't look like what you expected. And it might not look like what anyone else thinks it should. But you'll find your way. Reese wiped at her eyes. "Do you really believe that?" Sarah thought about her answer carefully. A week ago, she might have lied. But standing here in this place that represented everything she'd been trying to escape and everything she was trying to protect, she realized something important. "Yeah," she said finally, "I really do." By the time Sarah left the center, the afternoon sun was angling toward evening. Carlo was exactly where she'd left him, reading a paperback thriller and looking completely comfortable despite having sat in the car for hours. "How'd it go?" he asked as she slid into the back seat. "Good. Really good, actually. I'd forgotten what it felt like to help people without having to hurt other people first." Carlo pulled into traffic, his eyes meeting hers in the rearview mirror. "Boss told me you've been struggling with the Tony situation, that it's weighing on you." Sarah stiffened. "Vincent talks to you about that?" "Vincent talks to me about everything that might affect your safety, or his. We've been working together 15 years. I've seen a lot of people come through his life, Sarah. Most of them fall into two categories: people who are with him because of what he can give them, or people who are with him because they don't know how to leave." "Which category am I in?" Carla was quiet for a moment, navigating through traffic. "Neither. You're the first person I've seen who's with him because you understand him. Because you've both been to the same dark places and found ways to live with what you saw there. That's rare, worth protecting. Even if what we did to protect it was murder." Tony Castellano made his choices. Violent, stupid choices that put innocent people at risk. You and Vincent made the choice to stop him before more people got hurt. In my book, that's not murder. That's pest control. Sarah found herself laughing despite everything. Pest control. That's one way to rationalize it. Sometimes the only way to get through the day is to call things what they are instead of what they feel like. Carlo met her eyes in the mirror again. "You did good, Sarah. Both at the center today and with the Tony situation. Don't let the guilt of doing the right thing for the wrong reasons destroy what you've built." When they arrived back at the penthouse, Sarah found Vincent in his office, surrounded by papers and looking exhausted. He glanced up when she entered, and some of the tension in his shoulders eased. "How was the center?" "Exactly what I needed." Sarah settled into the chair across from his desk. "I helped some veterans with job applications, talked to a young Marine who's struggling with transition, and remembered that I'm more than just a bodyguard who sometimes kills people." Vincent set down his pen. "You were never just that to me." "I know, but I needed to remember it for myself." Sarah looked at the papers scattered across his desk. "What's all this?" "Due diligence on a potential investment. One of my legitimate business ventures." He saw her raised eyebrow and smiled. "Not everything I do is criminal, Sarah. About 40% of my income comes from legal enterprises. Import, export, real estate development, a chain of restaurants that actually turn a profit without laundering money. Only 40%. I'm working on improving that ratio. Turns out being a successful criminal requires being a somewhat successful businessman first. The skills transfer surprisingly well." Sarah leaned forward, genuinely curious. "Do you ever think about going completely legitimate? Just walking away from the criminal side?" Vincent was quiet for a long moment, his expression thoughtful. "Every day. Every single day I think about what it would be like to not wear body armor to business meetings, to not calculate which of my associates might try to kill me, to sleep through the night without keeping a gun within reach. But then I think about what would happen to the people and systems that depend on me maintaining order in spaces where the law doesn't reach. The people would adapt. They always do. Some would. Others would be consumed by whoever stepped into the power vacuum I left behind. And that person might not share my rules about civilians, about children, about unnecessary violence. Sometimes the devil you know really is better than the alternative. That's a convenient rationalization. It's also true. Vincent stood and walked to his window, hands in his pockets. But you're right that it's partially rationalization. The truth is, I'm good at this. Being the person who maintains order through controlled violence. And it's hard to walk away from being good at something, even when that something is morally complicated. Sarah joined him at the window. Marcus at the center told me I look more settled. Like I've stopped fighting myself. I think meeting you, working for you, accepting this life, it forced me to acknowledge something I'd been denying for 5 years. What's that? That I'm good at violence too. That trying to suppress that part of myself wasn't making me better or happier. It was just making me dishonest. Sarah turned to face him. But that doesn't mean I want to be good at violence forever. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. Vincent's hand found hers. What if we made a deal? We both work toward legitimate lives. Set a timeline, say 5 years. You use that time to build the skills and connections you need for whatever comes after this. I use it to gradually transition my operations to legal enterprises and groom Michael Castellano's younger brother as a suitable replacement for maintaining order in the criminal world. 5 years, Sarah repeated. That's a long time. It's also not that long, depending on how you spend it. And it gives us both an endgame that doesn't involve dying in a gunfight or spending our retirement in prison. Sarah studied his face, searching for signs of manipulation or false promises. But all she saw was genuine hope mixed with the kind of cautious optimism that came from years of disappointment. Okay, she said. 5 years. We work toward legitimate lives while protecting each other in this one. But Vincent, I need you to promise me something. Anything. No more Tony situations. No more premeditated violence, unless there's literally no other option. I can live with being your protection. I can't live with being your assassin. Vincent pulled her closer, his arms wrapping around her in an embrace that felt both protective and vulnerable. I promise. Tony was exceptional circumstances. From here forward, we find other ways to solve problems. They stood like that for a long moment, two people who'd committed terrible acts trying to believe in the possibility of redemption. Outside the window, Chicago sparkled in the early evening light, a city of millions going about their lives with no idea that in this penthouse, two people were plotting their escape from darkness. Sarah's phone buzzed. Text message from Marcus. Thank you for today. Reese asked if you'd be willing to mentor her. She needs someone who understands. Let me know. Sarah showed Vincent the message. This is what I want to protect. Not just you, but people like Reese. Veterans who are struggling to find their place after the war. Is there a way to do that while still being part of your world? Vincent read the message thoughtfully. What if we expanded our support? I told you I donate anonymously to veterans organizations. What if we made that more direct? Funded job training programs, mental health services, housing assistance. Use some of the profits from my criminal enterprises to actually help people instead of just maintaining power. You do that. Sarah, I've been looking for a reason to believe I'm more than just a well-dressed thug for years. You just gave me one. Vincent pulled out his phone and started typing. I'm emailing my accountant. By the end of the week, we'll have a foundation established. You can run it, decide where the money goes, make sure it actually helps people instead of just making me feel better about myself. Sarah felt something shift in her chest. This man, this complicated criminal who'd brought her into his violent world, was offering her a way to channel that violence into something constructive. It wasn't redemption. Nothing could truly wash away what they'd done to Tony Castellano, but it was a step toward becoming people who deserved redemption. Thank you, she whispered, for understanding, for trying. Thank you for giving me a reason to try. Over the next month, Sarah's life developed a rhythm that felt almost sustainable. Mornings at the Veterans Center, helping people like Reese navigate their transitions. Afternoons with Vincent's accountants and lawyers, establishing the foundation that would fund programs across Chicago. Evenings protecting Vincent during his business meetings, which remained tense, but notably less violent since Tony's death. The foundation became Sarah's anchor. She named it the Second Deployment Initiative, focused on helping veterans find new missions after their military service ended. The first grant went to Marcus's Center for expanding their mental health services. The The second funded a job training program that partnered with Chicago businesses willing to hire veterans. Reese became a regular presence in Sarah's life. They met twice a week for coffee, and Sarah watched the young Marine slowly transform from someone barely holding on to someone who'd found reasons to stay in the fight. When Reese got her first civilian job as a security consultant for a tech company, she called Sarah crying. "I did it," Reese said through tears. "I actually did it. I'm not just a broken Marine anymore. I'm someone with a future." "You were never broken," Sarah replied. "Just under construction." Vincent watched these transformations with something that looked like wonder. One evening, after Sarah returned from celebrating Reese's 3-month work anniversary, he pulled her into his arms and just held her. "What you're doing," he said quietly. "The way you're helping people rebuild their lives. I've never seen anything like it." "It's what someone should have done for me when I got out," Sarah replied. "Instead, I stumbled around for 5 years pretending I could be normal while slowly falling apart. If I can save even one veteran from that experience, everything else is worth it. Including the parts we're not proud of." Sarah pulled back to look at him. "I'm learning that guilt is only useful if it motivates change. Tony's death still haunts me. Probably always will. But if that guilt pushes me to help people like Reese, to fund programs that give veterans real options, then maybe something good can come from something terrible." Vincent kissed her forehead. "You're a better person than I am." "No, I'm just someone who's had enough therapy to develop functional coping mechanisms. There's a difference." They both laughed, and in that moment, Sarah realized something important. She was happy. Not the uncomplicated happiness of people who'd never had to make impossible choices, but the hard-won contentment of someone who'd looked at her worst self and decided to build something better anyway. The fragile peace lasted until a Thursday evening in early autumn when Marco appeared at the penthouse with an expression Sarah had learned to dread. "We have a problem," Marco said without preamble. "Michael Castellano's younger brother, Dante, has been making noise about Tony's death. He's been meeting with some of Tony's old crew, the ones who thought Tony's aggressive approach was the right strategy." Vincent's jaw tightened. "How serious is this?" "Serious enough that I've picked up chatter about another move against you. Nothing concrete yet, just conversations about honor and family and revenge. But it's the same kind of talk we heard before Tony's attack." Sarah felt ice settle in her stomach. "So we're back where we started. Another Castellano who wants Vincent dead?" "Not exactly," Marco said. "Dante's younger, early 20s, and he's more hot-headed than Tony ever was. But he's also less experienced, which makes him both more dangerous and more predictable. He'll make a move, but it'll be sloppier than Tony's attempt." Vincent stood and began pacing. "What's Michael's position on this?" "Michael's trying to rein him in, but Dante's not listening. Family politics are complicated. Michael can't just eliminate his own brother without causing a civil war within the Castellanos. He's hoping the problem resolves itself, or that we resolve it for him." "We're not killing Dante," Sarah said firmly. "We made a deal, Vincent. No more Tony situations." Vincent stopped pacing and met her eyes. "Sarah, if Dante comes after us, we have to defend ourselves." "Defend, yes. Assassinate, no. There's a difference." Marco looked between them. "There might be another way. Dante's young and stupid, but he's not suicidal. If we can demonstrate that making a move against Vincent will fail spectacularly and publicly, he might back down to save face." "How do we do that?" Sarah asked. "We let him make his move, but we control the circumstances. Set a trap that makes him look foolish instead of dangerous. Humiliate him enough that his own people lose faith in his leadership, but don't hurt him badly enough to create a legitimate blood feud." Vincent considered this. That could work, but it requires knowing when and where he plans to strike. "Leave that to me," Marco said. "I have sources inside the Castellanos who owe me favors. Give me 48 hours, and I'll have a plan." After Marco left, Sarah and Vincent sat in the living room, the weight of renewed danger pressing down on them. "This is what I meant about the cycle never ending," Sarah said. "We stop one threat, and another emerges. When does it end?" "In 5 years," Vincent replied. "We agreed on 5 years to build toward something different. This is just another obstacle in that timeline. We handle it, we move forward, we keep working toward the endgame." And what if we don't make it 5 years? What if Dante gets lucky, or the next threat after him, or the one after that? Vincent pulled her close. Then we make every day between now and then count. We keep helping veterans find their purpose. We keep building the foundation. We keep being people who deserve the future we're trying to create. And if we die trying, at least we die trying to be better than we were. Sarah wanted to argue, wanted to rage against the unfairness of a world where trying to be better still involved calculating threat assessments and wearing body armor to business meetings. But she was too tired, and Vincent was right. They'd chosen this path, and the only way through it was forward. "Tell me something," Sarah said. "Tell me something good about the future, about the life we'll have in 5 years if we make it." Vincent was quiet for a moment, his hand stroking her hair. "In 5 years, we live in a house instead of a fortress, somewhere with a yard and neighbors who wave hello without fear in their eyes. You run the foundation full-time, helping hundreds of veterans instead of dozens. I run my legitimate businesses and finally learned to sleep through the night without keeping a gun within reach. We go to museums without calculating exit strategies. We host dinner parties for people who aren't criminals. We wake up in the morning, and the first thought isn't about survival. It's about what we want to do with the day that's actually ours to shape." Sarah felt tears on her cheeks. "That sounds nice. That sounds like heaven." Vincent wiped her tears away with his thumb. "And I promise you, Sarah, we're going to get there. Together. No matter how many Dantes or Tonys or anyone else tries to stop us. We're going to get there." Sarah believed him. Or at least, she believed in the possibility enough to keep trying. And in a life built on violence and moral compromise, that fragile belief felt like the most valuable thing she possessed. Outside the penthouse windows, Chicago glittered in the darkness, a city full of people fighting their own battles against their own demons. Sarah and Vincent were just 2 more soldiers in that endless war, trying to hold the line between who they'd been and who they hoped to become. The fight wasn't over, but at least they were fighting together, toward something better than the darkness they'd both known for so long. And that, Sarah decided, was enough to keep going. Enough to face whatever came next. Enough to believe that 5 years from now, they might actually be the people they were pretending to be today. It had to be enough, because the alternative, giving up, giving in, accepting that violence was all they'd ever be good at, was unthinkable. So they keep fighting, keep trying, keep believing, together. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you love the story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.